Welcome back to Race to a Million, everybody. Really excited to share this segment with you. This is our first of what promises to be many segments on business tips. And we thought to start, what better place than to bring on not just an expert, but our very own expert, Kimberly Eibel, who is the Marketing and Social Media Director, a new addition to the Race to a Million staff. Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
You brought up a very good, important point for us the other day when we were doing some work here with Race to a Million, and that is before you can really identify, what you should be doing from a marketing perspective, before you can start to really making a huge impact with social media and that type of thing, you really got to hone down on your brand. What is your brand? So let's start with that.
A brand is an emotional connection, essentially, that people have with a company, a product, or a service. And because of that, it's much, much more than a logo, color, a design. Some people say it's the gut feeling that you have when you participate with a brand. Consumers are so much more sophisticated every day. We're bombarded with messages on a regular basis, over 6,000 messages per day, people trying to get our attention, companies trying to get our attention, various kinds of advertising online, on air, and print, billboards when we're walking down the street. There's competing messages all the time, and people are definitely tuning them out more and more. So your brand will help differentiate your company from that, help to cut through some of that clutter and make your company seen.
So you had said earlier that there are really three big questions that a business owner or entrepreneur has to ask themselves and then answer as in-depth and as complete as they can answer.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with those three questions? What are the three questions?
Well, the first question is really, who are your customers, again? Super critical. You need to know who they are, what motivates them, why they care, and how to speak with them directly. You would speak very differently with certain groups than other groups, and you need to make sure that you are speaking their language. So understanding what motivates them, where they go, what kinds of media they're looking at, these are all really important things. And most companies do have multiple markets, different groups that they are speaking to, and you need to be thinking about that when you're crafting your messages and when you're talking to those particular consumers or those partners, to be speaking to them in the language that they need to be spoken to. Because again, if you're not cutting through that clutter, they're not going to hear you, your messages are lost, and that can add up to a lot of financial resources that aren't being spent the way that they should be as well.
No, and it's a very good point. To draw the same parallel with our market, we've got contestants on one hand, and then we've got sponsors on the other hand.
Right.
And the sponsors tends to be those companies, large corporations tend to be run by middle or upper management that are about mitigating risk and reducing it.
Absolutely.
Whereas the consummate entrepreneur is all about taking those risks, right? And you're going to talk to them in two totally different languages. They have completely different motivators.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why it's really important to drill right down and to really get a good understanding of who your target market is. The second question is, who are you really as a company? Understanding what it is that you bring to the table. And beyond that, it's understanding what value you bring to your customers, what motivates you, what passion you have, what your credibility is, why people are going to listen to you. And again, this is where you can dive into your company values, what really makes sense to you. And often when you're going through these exercises, it's important to strip away the things that are off the top, things that you have assumptions about. When you're defining your core values, getting down into that, these are things that if these things cease to exist, your company would cease to exist as well. So honing things right down into that way. Also your vision, where you plan to go as a company, will certainly dictate everything else. It will set out the path for you. Understanding those things are really important. Understanding the marketplace in terms of your business. How are you going to compete? How are you going to make yourself a little bit different? How are you going to own the space of the market that you have, potentially?
What are we offering that's different?
Yeah, what are you offering that's different, and how are you going to be the only one that can do that for your customer?
So in our case, when we were answering who we are, we talked a lot about our vision. You know, that we're not just a reality television show, but we're much more than that. Our values are about, yes, making profit as a company, but having fun while we're making profit as a company. And at the same time being socially responsible, environmentally responsible, giving back more to our community, and finding ways to educate people on how they can be successful.
Yes.
While at the same time being more than just responsible, but actually causing a ripple effect of positive good in their communities.
Absolutely, and you can see even by what you just said how this particular company will align itself with other companies. And that's one of the other benefits of really understanding your company and going through a branding process, is being able to make those decisions and then understand how your company aligns with other companies for potential sponsorships, for potential alignments, strategic directions.
Joint venture marketing programs.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's also going to attract really good employees as well. Internally, it'll help clarify your focus, but when you're really clear on your brand, understanding who you are, what it is that you provide, what you bring, people that are like-minded are going to be attracted to that as well. The third question is now, how are you going to deliver that? We talked a little bit about brand and it being that emotional connection. Now that you know that, you know who your customer is, what it is that you're going to do, how are you going to deliver it in a really meaningful and tangible way. When we're talking brand and that emotional connection, companies have an opportunity to deliver on their brand at every touch point that they have with their customer. So this is everything from answering the phone, to your email signatures, to the way that invoicing gets handled, to how you present yourself in the media as well. Every company has an opportunity to communicate their brand and their values at every touch point that they have with their consumers.
So a lot of companies don't realize from an exit strategy that they've got to create a turnkey system for everything that they do. What you're saying is that just about every turnkey system within your organization is touched by who your customers are, who you are, and how you deliver it. So your brand is a very important point. You can't create those turnkey systems, create a wildly successful business without really understanding that, because it's going to hit every point within your business.
It absolutely hits every point in your business, and if you think about it, just what we've been talking about so far, if we think about your example of Race to a Million, and we know what kind of company this is and what the brand values are, if somebody was to be treated poorly as a result of having an interaction, that would go against everything that you had been building so far in terms of that brand. So it is very important that the person on the phone speaks nicely to people or communicates that brand message, that when your staff are out and maybe talking to the media, that those messages are really clear too. But even, as I mentioned, handling invoicing or any of those functions, those are all opportunities to deliver on your brand. And that's why branding is really important. It's an internal process as well as an external process. Everyone in your company needs to be part of that. They need to understand it fully and to fully support it. And again, that's about attracting like-minded people to your organization too.
So, in conclusion, are there some examples that you can give us on some really good brands and why they're really good brands?
There are some excellent examples of great brands, and if you even start to think about it, probably a whole bunch of them pop right up. One that is really obvious, and I think everyone is aware of, is the Coca-Cola brand. When you think of Coca-Cola, you're probably immediately thinking of that nice word mark and the way that the text flows.
The script Coca-Cola itself.
But probably a secondary thought is the color red and white, and the shape of the bottle. There's many different ways that brands communicate about themselves, and Coca-Cola does a wonderful job.
The Coca-Cola swoop as well.
Yeah. And in fact, everything that they do has a very clear Coca-Cola look and feel about it. You'll get that messaging throughout everything that they do.
That's a good point about the bottle too. I mean, the actual shape of the bottle itself. Nobody else has a bottle like that.
No, and in fact it flows a little bit from the logo word mark as well, and you can see it in different ways being represented, but it is very consistent. It's very Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola spends a lot of time and a lot of money on their brand for sure.
Well, that's it for this segment. of race2million.ca for business tips. Kimberly, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing the advice with us. I know that there's going to be many more opportunities for us to talk about business advice and tips and get into maybe some of that deeper marketing stuff now that we understand brand. So maybe what we can do is just ask you, the audience, send in those questions, the things that you'd like to hear about with regards to business tips. I'm Peter Cameron Inglis, and this is
Kimberly Idle.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.